1, 2, 3, funk it.
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you.
1, 2, 3, funk it.
My darling, I love you, 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 I love you. I can't focus on what needs to get done.
Welcome to your daily dose of mathematics.
You think I'm tepid, but I'm misdiagnosed. Cause I'm a stalker, I seen all of your posts.
Today, we are going to discuss factoring perfect square
That's
trinomials.
not what I wanna do now. And I'm not tryna be with you.
For today's lesson, we are expected to define the perfect square trinomial, determine the steps in factoring perfect square trinomial, and solve and identify the factors of a perfect square trinomial. Before we begin the lesson, let us first have an activity. The instruction is to identify and cross out all perfect squares. So I have here a table that contains perfect squares. All we need to do is to identify them. The first one we have here 9. 9 is a perfect square because of 3 times 3. Another is 100. 100 comes from 10 times 10. The next is 81. 81 is from 9 times 9. Yes. Next is 49. We have here 49. 49 is from 7 times 7. The next is 1. 1 is a perfect square because of 1 times 1. Next, we have here 144. 144 is from 12 times 12. Next is 4. 4 is from 2 times 2. Next one is 64. 64 is from 8 times 8. The next one we have here is 36. 36 is from 6 times 6. And 16 here is from 4 times 4. Another one is 121. 121 comes from 11 times 11. And the last one is 25. 25 comes from 5 times 5. So those are the examples of perfect squares, or those numbers are the perfect squares presented in the table. Now, what is a perfect square trinomial? We have 3 points for this question. Let's start. Okay, what is a perfect square trinomial? In point 1, it states that a perfect square trinomial is an expression with both first and last terms that are perfect squares. In point 2, perfect square trinomial states that the middle term is twice the product of the square root of the last and first terms. In point 3, these two relationships is presented in point 1 and point 2. First relationship, we have here first term squared plus 2 times the square root of first term and last term. Square root of first term multiplied to the square root of last term plus the last term squared. And the factor becomes first term, the quantity of first term plus last term squared. The second relationship is this one. First, the quantity of first term squared minus 2 times the square root of the first term multiplied to the square root of the last term plus last term squared, or the quantity of last term squared is equal to the quantity of first term minus last term squared. Before having an example, let us first enumerate the steps in factoring perfect square trinomials. Okay, the first step is to get the square root of the first term. And the second step is to get the square root of the last term. In step 1, we need the square root of the first term. And in step 2, we need the square root of the last term. And finally, on step 3, we are going to list down the square root as sum or difference of two terms. It depends on which relationship is presented on our expression. Now let's have some examples. Okay. Now let's have example number 1. Okay, example number 1 we have here x squared plus 16x plus 64. Okay, before we solve that one, let us first remember the first step or step 1. Step 1, get the square root of the first term. Our first term in this expression is x squared. The square root of x squared is equal to x. Step number 2, get the square root of the last term. Our last term in this expression is positive 64. And our square root of positive 64 is 8. Step number 3, list down the square root as sum of two terms. Okay. Now we have here, before we are going to list down the two square roots, let's first make two open and close parentheses. Okay, now first, let's distribute x to both parentheses. First goes here, and the second x goes here. Next is to distribute the last term, which is 8. So the first last term goes to the first parentheses, which is here, and the second goes there. And after that one, we need to inspect the signs presented on our expression. All the signs presented here are all positive. That one and that one. They are both positive, and positive product or the positive product is from positive times positive, since all the signs or all the operations presented on our expression are positive. So from that, we can conclude that the signs in two parentheses should be both positive. Positive here and positive this side. So we can conclude that the factor of x squared plus 16x plus 64 is the quantity of x plus 8 times the quantity of x plus 8. Or, in short, or in simplified form, that is the quantity of x plus 8 squared. Therefore, the factors of x squared plus 16x plus 64 is the quantity of x plus 8 squared. Now let's proceed to example number 2. We have here the expression x squared minus 6x plus 9. Let's factor this perfect square trinomial. Okay, step 1 is to get the square root of the first term. Our first term here is x squared. So the square root of x squared is equal to x. Step number 2, get the square root of the last term, which is 9. The square root of 9 is equal to 3. Now since we have both square roots of first and last terms, let's proceed to step number 3. List down the square root as difference of two terms. Okay, Before listing down all the square roots, let us first make again two parentheses. Now let's distribute x to both parentheses here and here. And let's distribute the last term, which is 3 here and also here. Now, you notice that an operation presented to example number 2 is negative and positive. So if we have different operations in our expression or example, we are going to use negative times negative in our factors here. So let's distribute negative here and negative on this side. So therefore, the factors of x squared minus 6x plus 9 is the quantity of x minus 3 multiplied to the quantity of x minus 3. Or, in simplified form, that becomes the quantity of x minus 3 squared. So therefore, the factors of x squared minus 6x plus 9 is the quantity of x minus 3 squared. Now let's proceed to example number 3. We have here 4x squared plus 8x plus 4. Okay, step number 1, get the square root of the first term. First term here is 4x squared. So the square root of 4x squared is 2x. Since the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of x squared is x. Now let's proceed to step number 2. Get the square root of the last term. Our last term here is 4. Okay. Since the square root of 4 is 2, then we have both square roots of first and last term. We can proceed to step number 3. We are going to list down the square root as sum of two terms. Okay, before we list down two square roots, let us first again two parentheses. Okay, we have here 2x, distribute 2x here and here. And also, we are going to distribute 2, our last term here and here. Again, we can see that both operations in our example is positive. Therefore, we are going to use the signs positive and positive on both parentheses. Here and here. So therefore, the factors of 4x squared plus 8x plus 4 is the quantity of 2x plus 2 times the quantity of 2x plus 2. Or in simplified form, this becomes the quantity of 2x plus 2 squared. Therefore, the factors of 4x squared plus 8x plus 4 is the quantity of 2x plus 2 squared. For any questions or comments, please type down it on the comment box below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next lesson.